Let's call the meeting to order. If you'll stand, please, I will lead the pledge. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Ms. Vaughn, everybody's present except Ms. Usselton, but I believe we've got her on the phone. But Mr. Miller, she's not attempting to vote, so there's not a legal question. All she's doing is listening.
Can we at least say good evening?
And tell her we're going to mute her.
She's laughing. She's too late.
She's laughing.
First item of business is approval of agenda. Do we have a motion to accept the agenda as presented?
So moved.
Got a motion?
Second.
All right. Motion by Jessica and Dr. Lynn on the second. Any further discussion? If not, if you're for the agenda as presented, please respond by raising your hand. Any opposed? Is there any individual here to address the board on an agenda item or a non-agenda item? I'm going to recognize the young man in the back who's here, I believe, working on a merit badge. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
What's your name?
Tatum.
Pardon me?
Tatum.
All right. And what school do you go to?
Western School.
Good for you. Welcome. Thank you for being here. All right. Consent agenda. Everybody has a copy of that. Is there any item, either the minutes or the surplus, that needs to be off for special conversation? If not, I will entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
So moved.
Ms. Robinson has the motion. Anybody else for a second?
Second.
Motion by Ms. Lawson. Any further discussion? If not, if you're for the consent agenda as presented, please respond by raising your hand. Any opposed? Unfinished business. The maintenance committee met recently and checked on the status of the OLG engineering work at Bel Air. And Mr. Rodwood feels like, or they feel like, that they will have contractor bids back in by, that we can go over sometime during spring break, with work to hopefully begin in the summer. Both Mrs. Vaughn and Mr. Carver's offices have got new drop ceiling in them. If you haven't seen them, please go check them out. Tim Jensen's crew did a really nice job there. We're really beginning to get to the point where the maintenance committee's mission, we don't have anywhere near as much as we had when we first convened this committee 3 or 4 years ago. Several years out to have to even worry about any of the roofs. All the windows have been replaced, and at some point, I would like the board to consider the maintenance committee taking on a little bit extra responsibility, such as talking about facilities needs in the future. And one of those, of course, would be what we might be able to do at Farrah. The footprints, Mr. Carver feels like are fine, but to get the buildings more in tune with what we want to do education-wise, we may need to do some work inside. Any, Ms. Lawson or Dr. Lynn, or anything that took place that I have missed or we need to talk about? All right. Let's go then to policy section 2.
Okay, and I can speak to that. One of the things that's been, going forward is a hard look at board policy, and that the board has adequate time to review policy and understand what it is and to take action on it. One of the things that I've learned during this time is that the board policy is the governances, and as a board, I think it would be good either in a study session or to have a board subcommittee looking at board policy and reporting back to the rest of the board, so that they know each section of board policy pertains to a certain operation. And that, I guess I liken it to the Bible. When you read the Bible start to finish, right? But as you read the Bible start to finish, there's certain excerpts that you pull out and you look at from time to time. Same is true with board policy. There are certain board policies that have to be renewed annually that wouldn't necessarily match up to the schedule that you have, where you're looking at section 1, section 2, section 3, and so on. So I really, staff here at the district office, we've been working through that. We've been in conversations with Clifton as far as the legalities of what we do, and going forward, we'll have a plan in place. We're not to that point yet, but a lot of the questions that I think may come up from patrons or administration or board members, if we just default to the rules of monopoly, if you would, that answers a lot of the questions. That all being said, your schedule for tonight was to look at the physical management piece, which is section 2 of your board policy. And that going forward, when we have a section to review, that will be part of the work session. And so that you have a chance to look at all those policies and questions. And then when we get to a board meeting, you can act upon it, okay? But section, and I'd have to take a step back too, and, on the board policies, the web page is being worked on, and so it'll be easy for you to go to section 2, hit that, and it'll cascade down with all the various policies and a title as to what that policy adheres to, okay?
That's a possibility now or future?
We will have it soon. We will have it soon. So, that being said, the schedule for tonight was the physical management piece, which deals with all the funding issues and budgetary, and again, because we did not discuss it in a work session, I think it should be noted that you guys were presented with it. We'll have the opportunity to look at it. It's my understanding, Greg, there aren't any new policies being
That is
recommended?
correct. That's correct for this section 2.
Okay.
No recommendations.
But it's a fairly lengthy section, and just to say there's no policies without having you guys take a look at it, I think going forward we'll do it a little different. Okay.
There was an email that Amy responded to about possibility of a subcommittee taking a look at it. Do we need to
Correct.
talk more about that at the study session?
That would be something that actually would be a good topic when we have our board retreat in February as to
Okay.
actions that the board will take to support our
All right.
initiative going forward. As I don't know if I made mention or not, but Clifton and I had a good conversation this past week. In fact, it was yesterday, if I remember right. And I think, Clifton, your thoughts on the strategies that we're looking at as far as a work session and review policy, I mean, does that fit in your
Yes,
view?
yeah. If we get a schedule put together, we'll match that schedule, we'll work within it however you want. And the biggest thing, as I told you, is that us getting the TSBA recommended changes far enough in advance before work sessions that we can then have staff go through. We go through, we check the citations, we actually pull the cited materials, compare it to the policies, and see if we agree with the way the policies are worded, things of that nature. And sometimes we have tweaks here and there, sometimes we have substantial changes.
So, and I do think the coordination of that is important. The other piece is, once the schedule calendar is created, everybody will know what it is. So that Clifton's office will have it, you guys will have it.
The retreat on the 27th would be a good time to talk about this, but I still want Ms. Vaughn to put it on the study session to have a little initial discussion before we go there.
That's fine.
Before we leave that topic, can I bring up something on that, about the policy thing? When I first came on board, I printed off a large amount of everything that was on there, read through, and there were some things that even I found, even having just come on board, that did need some tweaking. I took it to Dr. Lawson, and I forget if you were there, Mr. Rugby, or not, but anyway, they changed some things around that were just, sometimes just clerical things, but I think it is a good idea to go through that, and nobody's perfect. Whoever compiles it, sometimes there's going to be things that need to be changed.
Well, and I do think the policy book is quite large.
It is.
And so, as we've discussed with staff here, is that'll be something that we will fixed, if you will, as we go through this next year. I don't think there's enough man-hours that we could go through it all and determine it. And just so everyone knows the roles, it is this board's responsibility to create the policy. And it is TSBA's role to create boilerplate that we can look at, and then have our own legal counsel tweak and agree to and what have you. It then becomes the staff's responsibility, ultimately my responsibility, that the policy is implemented in a timely fashion and implemented with fidelity. And, you know, one of the things that, when the calendar and the schedule is created, you know, Sandy's role, I've teased her a little bit, but, you know, more or less the Inspector General, that she is making sure that we are adhering to things as they should be. And because the policy is so large, it needs a lot of set of eyes catching to make sure we're doing the work we need to be working on. You know, the other thing that comes to mind too, Ms. Jessica, is, you know, we talked about the tuition piece, and that was a policy that was supposed to be looked at every year, and to the best of our knowledge, it hasn't been looked at in 20 years. And that could have alleviated a lot of angst if we knew it and were looking at it on a scheduled purpose. So as far as the physical management piece for the board tonight, we don't have any new boilerplate policies to put in place. I would suggest, Mr. President, that we look at this be a discussion point at our next work session, so the board is just familiar with it.
Right.
And then we can, at our February board meeting, pass that one. And Greg, I don't have in front of me what the next section is for February, but we may adjust that so that the board is looking at policy, you know, breaking it
It's
up.
section 5.
Yeah, and see, so it may be such that we'll work on a little better schedule for that.
So, I mean, would you advise that we would do this one and 5 together at our next one, just so that we can start getting ourselves back on track?
Well, I'll be honest with you, I have to do a little more investigation on that.
Okay.
I just assume, I don't want to crunch it all into once, I just assume take my time and do it right.
Okay.
If it's such that the policies can both sections can be covered in that same work session, we might look to do that, otherwise we may just make an adjustment. But keep in mind, there are policies that we would look at in section 2 that might have to be voted on renewal, say in September or October. Because just because we looked at it now, we still may have to come back to it. Okay? So that would be my recommendation, sir.
Thank you. Any other discussion there? If not, Mr. Carver, the 1920 budget.
Okay. We're in the process of creating the budget for the 1920 school year. At your desk, you have a document. It's from myself and Mr. Rugley. Basically, for the audience, we're in the process of collecting data for our 1920 budget. We invite you to comment and suggest in regards to any of the budget that you would wish to address. Please use your comments in the space provided and return to us prior to February 5th. So, as I understand the budgeting process, this is an annual occurrence in which the board is which Dr. Lawson administration had solicited input from the board. I'm assuming this is where you guys came up with the suggestion about the art and PE teachers, right?
Music.
Yes.
Music and art.
Yeah. So this is the board.
Those are several of the items that made the budget. Those were not the only items.
Right, like there's a laundry list of things,
Yeah.
but
Right. So maybe it would be helpful for me to go back, if you could recreate that laundry list or things that you think are important. And
Well, I can tell you one of mine is going to change, so don't
No.
pay too much attention on the laundry list that didn't get out
I'm,
of the laundry and pressed.
I'm just interested in the information that we provided at this point.
Okay, all right, I understand.
At this
I
point,
thought you were
I'm-
asking for some of the past of these.
And if I wasn't clear, I apologize. I'm not, I'm looking at, everything is looking forward,
Okay.
going forward. So
Good enough.
if you could get that and get that back to us.
You'll have no shortage of requests, I'm sure.
Yeah.
If history repeats itself.
That's lots of good work.
But the board members know that not everything's going to be possible.
Right.
All right. Liaison report.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Let's see, at our last board meeting, Zach Shealy was the honorary alderman. We enjoyed having him. He is a wonderful and very bright and intelligent young man. Really enjoyed him. I want to thank those of you who came to our legislative dinner the other night. I think it was very informative for everyone who attended, and a lot of feedback. So we
And the
appreciate
young
it.
lady that's presently on the youth representative
Yes.
was
Yes,
excellent
she did.
too.
She was very, very good. So enlightened us about a lot of things. So
Right.
I was glad to hear from her. With the holidays, a lot of things, things have been kind of going on as standard. The only thing, we had a presentation of the new police department that we're starting the process, working on drawings, renderings and things. So hopefully things will start in this year. Don't know, it'll be probably 2020 before we have a completion, but it's a really, really nice, going to be a nice facility and definitely an addition to Tullahoma. So we're really excited about that. So,
Great. One quick question.
Sure.
Is that going to be directly behind where a lot of the cars are parked
Yes,
now?
it is.
What would you do about parking after that?
They're going to revamp where the parking is, and there will still be parking there, but it will be down around the side into the back. The front will actually be there on Grundy. But yes, they're going to utilize everything they possibly
Great.
can there. So it's going to be a really, really nice facility. Actually bring us up to where we need to be.
Great. Good deal.
And you know something I was going to tell you, Keith and I, every time we go to Publix, we look at the tags on the cars to see like who's shopping at our Publix.
Yes.
And it's always like Franklin County and Bedford County, and so.
Most definitely.
Are we seeing a lot of
Yes,
that?
a lot of us go through, and it is amazing how many of the surrounding counties, even Rutherford County, I've seen several of them, but obviously the Moore County and all of our surrounding counties are kind of, I think, they're as happy as we are about getting it. So,
Right.
yes.
Great addition. And I understand there's more on the way at some point.
Yes, well, there's a lot of discussions, a lot of rumors, don't believe everything here. Unfortunately, we haven't gotten them signed on the dotted line, but believe me, everyone's working.
Once I brought that up, please do not anybody ask, because I do not know. All I know is it's floating. Yeah,
It's all rumors at this point.
that's right.
That's not Target for sure.
Okay.
Definitely,
We'll
sorry,
knock
it
that
is
one
not
off.
Target. We don't
All
have
right.
them practice.
Mr. Carver, your report.
Okay. The first item here is just making mention the first 100 days. That will conclude on February 8th. And it seems like every day I continue to learn new things about the district, identify areas in which we need to work on. Ari made mention about working through the policy issue. That's one of the things that we're going to be focusing on. Also during this 100 days, continuing to evaluate staff and making sure that we not only have everybody on the bus, but have everybody in the right seats and such. So again, as we come up on the end of that first 100 days, I look forward to meeting with the board on the 27th for the study session. I've talked with President Walsh. One of the things we are looking at a half-day period. Part of the time would just be a revisiting of the mission vision statement, kind of a go, no-go, because that's what we've been building off of. Part of that time would be a granular report on one of the things that I've seen during that first 100 days. And then kind of what the vision is going forward. Some of the things I've kind of shared that I think we need to target when the 6th grade graduates from high school here, we should be in a state of a new state, a new structure at that point. And again, lots of instructional things that need to be revisited. The board's vision to looking at the whole child, not only the academic piece, but the social emotional piece, I think is huge. And to accomplish that, we're going to have to retool and look at things. I am a firm proponent of physical fitness. I'm a firm proponent of mental health. And we have to have structures in place to support the kids. And if we're going to fulfill the mission, we have to have structures in place to hit all those touch points and such. I made mention about the personnel. Again, making sure everybody is on the bus in the right seats. That continues to be an ongoing process of mine. The other thing I wanted to make mention as far as personnel goes, one of the board policies that was to be discussed in January, it just says reviewed, is on differentiated pay. And differentiated pay alludes to hard-to-fill positions. Now, the past practice of the board has been to provide a stipend, I just went blank, stipend for
Speech language pathologists.
Speech language pathologists because they are a high-need entity. And I believe there's a $5,000 stipend for those.
High need and limited supply.
Unicorns. They are like unicorns. And we will be continuing that process. I think one of the things that we need to explore on that differentiated pay is looking at maybe one-time expenditures as opposed to putting things into a salary schedule where it is in perpetuity. On the horizon,
You speaking of a signing bonus?
signing bonus or funding for advanced education,
You've already, I know you got one man already perked up.
hopefully,
Yeah, the recurring cost is a
Right.
concern he is.
well,
Unless you got
and
plenty of money to pay them.
And I think having some discussion on looking outside the box as far as differentiated pay, when you start getting into that gets to be a slippery slope because special ed teachers are highly defined. And so if you start bumping up pay to one special ed teacher, what do you do about the special ed teachers who are already on staff? So I've been a strong proponent of one-time expenditures, incentives, signing bonuses. I think that might be something to explore. I know there's been a lot of discussion about some kind of a merit-based pay scenario. Again, that could factor into the differentiated pay at some point. But we'll have more discussion on that. I don't think there's any, do we have any new hires during this time, Greg?
Yes, and they're listed on the attachments.
Okay, could you read those out loud for us, please?
Hires, we hired Johnny Hill, he's a bus driver and educational assistant. Laura Fulham is a...
Let me ask a quick question. Is he coming from Marshall County?
May have been, came from Murray County, Moore County to us.
Okay, somebody different. Go ahead, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Laura Fulham is a new art teacher. Audrey Yates is the other new art teacher. And Joseph Rollins is a maintenance worker who will be painting across the district. We've got some resignations transferred.
No, that's fine. And then as far as another aspect of the personnel is there's been a lot of discussion lately in reference to the sick leave bank. And gave some direction to Dr. Carter. I think there's a folder at each one of your tables. Dr. Carter, for the record, and could you kind of walk us through what's been prepared at this point?
Yes. In the packet, if you look on the left side, you should see a general welcome letter that everybody will get in reference to the law that we're talking about in allowables. Just below that, a sick leave bank summary sheet is there, and that's a summary of the sick leave bank, how it works, and the current members at the bottom. And then, of course, we have what they apply at the beginning of the year there. That's the back page. Over on the right, you'll see confidential page that covers the application and my report to John Harper when I tell him that I've got everything in. And that is based on the law, so it's going to go right down the list.
Okay. And on the checklist that's been created, can you just walk us through what the steps are, please?
Yes. Of course, the name, location, position, date request is the first thing that comes up. Then I review the files, and I talk to Mr. or Mrs., and then I can report that she's amended the sick leave bank and placed the date. Request to the director for days off on the sick leave bank and the date. Out of sick leave days and the date. The next item is off for 5 days without pay and then the date. The request is for 20 days or less, what their need to go through. It's 5 days or 4 days or 12 days. I will have verification of Social Security disability. And the last thing is the doctor's note, the diagnosis, the start date, and return to work or reevaluation. And when it's in the file, then I'll present this document to John Carver, and he can go forward to the committee.
Okay, and so the process is, once we have all the paperwork done in a timely fashion, that we would have a meeting of the sick bank trust, which consists of 2 board members, 2 teachers, and then myself. And then Dr. Carter would be the caretaker of materials and such to make sure everything is done appropriately. Currently, can you give us the members that are on the committee, please?
Yes. Of course, there's you, Teresa Lawson, Kim Usselton, Candace Cherry, she's been on there for 3 years, is a TCA member and a teacher, and Ann Black, as a teacher and TCA member, is her first year.
Okay. And on the sheet that you got here, it says request for 20 days or less. 20 days is the max, correct?
Yes, they can, each time they can ask for up to 20.
Okay. And what again is the maximum number of days?
60 during the year, 90 for an event that crosses over.
Okay. And the doctor's letters stating the diagnosis, start date and such, we're pretty much defaulting to what the doctors suggest, correct?
Yes. It's kind of a slippery slope if you don't follow that.
Okay. And it's my understanding that historically there has not been a lot of folks take part in this, correct?
It's more now the last few years. Last year, I think we had 6 or 7. The year before, we had 2 or 3. This year, we have 2. So it goes from 2.
You mean request?
Yes, request.
Right, like how many people are a part of it? Is
Can't
it?
tell you the number, but it's almost everyone.
Okay,
Almost everybody's in it, and that includes the classified.
okay.
Which for the benefit of the board, historically had been the teachers, but was it a year ago? It was
2 years.
2 years ago. It was extended to the support staff,
Okay.
so they have access to the bank as well.
And now our sick leave bank, I believe, is 1,085 and 95 days that are available. So there's no problem with the request.
Okay. But again, that's one of those policies and procedures, protocols that we're revisiting and making sure that we're, not violating any kind of.
Do we know how many years we've added to the balance
They're every year.
every year? We haven't had,
No, we've never had to withdraw or have people put in more years.
if it's all right with the board, I've got several other questions, and some of it's because I haven't researched this like I should have beforehand. And I'd like to put that on the study session. I don't think it's going to take, maybe my questions, probably not in the last 3 minutes, but there may be others that would like to ask some questions too.
Okay. Sandy, you got that?
Please.
Sandy, if you would, as far as the minutes go, I think it reflect that we did review the differentiated pay, but that no action was taken at this point because we're still finding out what our needs are going to be, and it's a point of departure from the past because as was shared, the history of it was we had a hard to fill spot we just allocated money for a bump in pay. And we're gonna look at different strategies with that going forward.
Do you have anything else?
I do not, sir. Thank
One
you.
last thing for me, we have a nice letter from a note from Miss Edens, who lost her mother. The board sent some
Okay.
flowers, and let me, did y'all get to see it?
Yes.
Let me sit it down on that side, please. All right, anything else, any other business to come before the board,
I do have one announcement.
please?
I got I'm really excited by this. I got an email from Dr. English that said the Naval Band is going to be making a trip here, a performance. They've asked to come and make a performance and stuff. So, very, very excited about that. Apparently, they have been here before.
Yes.
And very, very excited. Just pulling it up. Said, the United States Naval Band is requested to return to Tullahoma. It will be one of 25 stops on their annual tour. And the tentative date for their performance is March 17th. So that's really cool. That's very cool. Very cool. I have nothing else at this time, sir.
I wanted to say too, that last night, the baseball team had David Hess
Oh, that was good.
come and speak, and David is a professional baseball player, but he's a graduate of Tullahoma High School, and he just did an excellent job. He was just so appreciative of growing up in this community and had such positive things to say, and I think he went and worked out with the team earlier in the day, and it was a great event they had. I think they sold over 400 tickets. It was totally packed.
Good food.
Yeah, it was good food. Anyway, it was a really nice night and really well attended.
Hey, Pat, can you put that in the minutes as well and acknowledge him? And there was another young man, baseball player too, that I think we need to acknowledge that played for the major leagues this past year.
They both were promoted, but the Sheffields are not. They're not in the major league level yet.
Okay. I thought
But that would be a good
He
to.
pitched at Yankee Stadium last year.
I thought he
David did.
No. Sheffield.
I'm sorry, he did. Excuse me. Yeah, let's put,
Justice.
let's have Justice.
Because I mentioned.
Justice did.
Yeah.
Justice
Yeah.
did, yeah.
Dustin Lynch once, and I forgot.
Right.
To them, and
Right.
I'll correct that.
We did recognize Dustin Lynch in the minutes. Let's recognize those two baseball players too. Let's see, seemed like there was some. Oh, here's another, we're sprinkling all kinds of things over the minutes here. Who are the students that designed the logo for your drilling activity?
I can pull that up, just give me a second. They did a great job.
Yeah, I wanted to send a thank you note, and I'm sure they're not in that class this semester, I'm assuming.
Was that the little square?
I said
It was Jarrett Wooten, W-O-O-T, and Jarrett Wooten, and Griffin Basham, B-A-S-H-A-M. And they're both seniors in the digital design class in the high school.
Great, I'd like them recognized in the minutes too, and I really, the drops, I'm glad somebody pointed it out to me, because I'd be so backward and not smart enough to see the significance. There's 7 drops signifying the 7 schools.
Right.
It's really neat.
I did not
Yeah.
I did not notice that either.
Well, I had to be told that. Don't anybody be embarrassed.
You might also make mention the special ed summit, which is in February, apparently.
Announce that, please.
Yeah, I will, there's
You're
been.
talking about the parents? Yes.
Yes, yeah.
Do that.
On Saturday, February 2nd, from 9:30 to 1:45, Tullahoma Schools is hosting a K-12 parent summit. And there will be sessions on reading strategies for the home, behavior strategies for home, educational technology, promoting creativity. It's an outreach to parents to provide them with some support for as we band together to raise the children. So if you can all make it, it's February 2nd.
Where is it? Up at the high
At,
school?
It's at, East, East Middle?
Was it East last time?
I think it's at East.
East Middle School.
East Middle.
Okay.
East Middle School, correct. It's free. Plus there'll be breakfast, lunch, and snacks.
Food.
Kim, are you still there?
Of course.
You're a patient lady. I'm going to now ask for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
A motion by Ms. Lawson, do we have a second?
Second.
Second by multiples. All those in favor, raise your hand. Any opposed? Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.